As we know, we can't live forever. It is important that you make sure your child is set for life without you. Hopefully, we can answer these questions today. If you have any questions, please press the hand button at the bottom of the screen and I will call on you after the presentation is over. I will turn this over now to Bill to introduce our panelists. Enjoy, y'all.
Good day and welcome to our four-part series and panel discussion entitled Brighter Financial Future for Our Special Needs Children. I'm Bill Emerling and I work for VistaPoint Special Needs Trust and Resource Center, and I handle public relations for West Tennessee. Week number 3, today we will focus on the financial planning for our children with special needs. Our distinguished panelists are all professionals and all offer legal or financial services to families with special needs. We will ask each panelist the same 3 questions. Our panelists today are Chastity Grice, who's an attorney, Carolyn Fleur, who is a financial advisor, and Teresa Law, Senior Public Relations Marketer for VistaPoints. Our questions are going to be, question number 1, what type of support do you offer? Question number 2, what is the process to receive services like first steps and time frame? And question number 3, once goals are identified, what can we expect? And each of our panelists will be presenting several slides and they will answer all 3 questions within their presentation. So it gives me a great honor to introduce our first panelist, Chastity Sharp Grice. Chastity is an attorney in Memphis and a native of Tennessee and is admitted to the bars of both Tennessee and Texas. She graduated magna cum laude from Clark Atlanta University with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English. She received her law degree from the University of Tennessee College of Law. Chastity has worked for certified public accounting firms where she focused on estate planning. In 2014, she joined the firm Pepple, Gomes, and McIntosh, where she focused her practice in the areas of probate, estate planning, and elder law. In 2017, the firm changed its name to Pepple, Grice, and Palazzolo. Chastity accepts appointments as guardian ad litem and attorney ad litem from the Shelby County Probate Court as well, and also from the probate courts of Dallas, Collin, and Tarrant counties of Texas. She is regularly appointed to represent individuals with mental disabilities facing emergency judicial commitments before the mental health court judges. In 2016, Chastity was accepted as a young leader of the American College of Trust and Estate Counsel. She works remotely with Tennessee Alliance for Legal Services, where she gives legal advice to seniors in Tennessee. Chastity has dedicated her career to the areas of trust and estates and serving families with disabled loved ones or seniors, focused on their special needs to ensure that they have the best quality of life possible. She recently obtained her LLM degree in elder law and estate planning with Western New England School of Law and strives to educate the public about the many resources available to them. In 2017, 18, 19, and 2020, Chastity was recognized as a rising star by Super Lawyers. Please welcome attorney Chastity Grice.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bill. And it is by far a pleasure to be here today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So I am here today to speak with you and to answer those questions that Bill just posed to us. Most of the time, clients believe that as an attorney, we can only handle courtroom stuff. And that's just so far from the truth, especially when working with families who have young ones and loved ones that may have some supplemental and special needs. I consider myself a life planner. I consider myself someone who is, at the end of the day, part of your family. We work with you through different issues that may come up and different questions that you may have. And so that's why I hate to say I'm just a lawyer. I like to say that I'm a life planner. Now, I represent and work with primarily caregivers. That's the majority of my day. And in dealing with that, being an attorney, I'm not just dealing with the legal effects of that. There are two effects that I focus on, and that's the financial effects of being a caregiver and the emotional effects. I always operate with the belief that the most important person in the family is the center, which is you. If you're a caregiver, you are the center. And if you don't take care of yourself, then where does that leave our loved ones? So I have to focus on your needs so that we can ensure that we are properly taking care of your loved ones' needs. And with that, I look at the financial effects of what's happening and the emotional effects of that. And the truth of the matter is, there are financial effects that many individuals who are not in our shoes, I should say, they don't recognize or don't understand, and that's employment, the increase in the expenses for special needs loved ones, and understanding that being a caregiver is in fact a full-time job. And the reason I mention those, I know you may be thinking, well, what does that have to do with being a lawyer? Well, remember, I'm not just a lawyer, I am a life planner. So I walk through different resources that that we have in our state and federally, that can help with some of these effects. Secondly, there are emotional effects of being a caregiver. There's no break. This is, again, a full-time job, and sometimes it feels as though it may be a thankless job. And there is a sacrifice that goes along with that. And because of that, there are resources that are available to you as a caregiver that I recognize. So I want to talk about the process a little bit. There are a couple of slides in here that would provide some resources to you, and I will ensure that I've provided those to Vista Points for everyone. But I recognize that the caregiver has sacrificed everything. And in that sacrifice, you shouldn't have to learn how to navigate the processes of how to care for your loved one, how to care for your children. And that's what I'm here for. I am here to navigate that maze for you and to give you a step-by-step process in how to address any needs and or concerns that you have for your child. So where do I fit in? Let's talk about my initial process. I have a two-part consultation. The initial consultation, the purpose is to first find out why you're here, why you believe that you may need an attorney, what your concerns may be, what your needs are. So the first conversation that we would have, which I reference as an initial consultation, is to discuss what those needs are and to try to identify those. You may not necessarily know all of the needs, but you do know what kind of struggles you may be having or what could make your life just a little bit easier. And so that's what our discussion is about. We go through a process, a step-by-step process where we talk about some of these issues. And I don't necessarily give you all the answers that day because that's the initial fact finder. That is the time for me to learn about your family and learn about the needs that you have. And remember, I am focusing on our caregiver and what you need to help you function and take care of your child. The second part of my consultation is once I've listened to you and heard your concerns, I identify what those needs are. And then we talk about what resources there are to tackle those needs one by one. And that's a tough process. And it's different for every single case. And so for that reason, we break that consultation down into two parts. That gives me time to identify your needs and to identify resources so that we can build your team. What do I mean by building your team? I operate in my practice by the team-based approach. And what I mean by a team-based approach is I believe that it takes more than just me to help you. I go by the very old school saying it takes a village to raise a child. And I believe that. I believe that with my kids. I believe that with myself growing up. I believe that the best way for you to take care of yourself as well as a caregiver is to have a village. So rather than you trying to navigate this maze and figure out what village you need, I start with this consultation process and identifying the needs of your child. And once I understand better what those needs are, once you help me to identify those needs, we identify what type of professional is needed. And now I'm not certainly not arrogant enough to think that you only need me. I know that you need more than me. There are professionals all across this country who have dedicated their lives to helping special need families in different ways. And I don't expect you to know who they are or where they are in their entirety, which is why I identify this at our second part of our consultation. And once they are identified, we go through the professionals and we began a relationship. We began a relationship so that you literally have that village behind you. Again, you are the central point of contact here. You are the person who helps us to understand your family. You know your family better than we do. And so we're going to make sure that you have the professionals behind you to give you the support and the help that you need so that you don't feel like you're walking through a maze and that you're hitting dead ends throughout your life. So we recognize your needs, and in recognizing your needs, that can consist of a lot of these bullet points here. It can consist of training to help you to better learn how to care for your child if you need that help. It can provide respite services. I can help you to identify organizations that would provide respite services. Those many of you may already be quite familiar with what that means, but if you're not, again, we recognize that you as a caregiver have a full-time job, and some of you a full-time job on top of a full-time job caring for your loved ones. So when you're going through this life, and when you're going through this process of trying to put one foot in front of the next, we recognize that sometimes you just need a breather, just a moment to take a deep breath. And that's what respite services can provide for you. They can provide help and support so that you can take care of yourself, so that you are the best caregiver you can be for your child. There are some other supports here that we identify sometimes, depending on what comes out in your consultation. That would be possibly some counseling, some therapy, family support. When I say family support, we want your family to be a part of this process. We don't want it to just be you. And sometimes it is just you, but if it's not, we want to include your family in this process. Now, legal support. Again, I am not just a lawyer, I am a life planner, but I understand that sometimes we do have to get the legal systems involved. When you have children with special needs, the moment that they turn 18, the law doesn't change for them. The law says that because they have special needs, they are now not because they have special needs, but because they are now legally an adult, they have the right to make decisions for themselves. What we understand, though, is that the moment they turn 18, their needs haven't changed. They still have the same need for the support that you've given them for their entire lives. And because of that, we sometimes have to go through with our families a conservatorship process. And a conservatorship in Tennessee is basically a court-appointed guardian over your child. We would work with our families to ask the court to appoint you now legally as the appointed guardian over your child to be able to continue to make the decisions that you've made all along, but now you're making them with your child who has turned legally an adult. There are other legal processes that we work with you on. Medicaid is one of them. If your child needs long-term care, and that can come it could look like many different things. One way that it could look is at your home. You may need someone to come in your home and to provide some home health services for your child. Or you may need a facility to help you provide those services. In either of those situations, in Tennessee, we estimate the cost of that to be somewhere around $4,500, and it can go all the way up to $7,000 or $8,000 a month, which is astronomical. And so the Medicaid process can sometimes help pay for that, help subsidize the cost of long-term care for your loved one. Going through that process can be very difficult. It could be very frustrating for you, which is why we help you through the process. We guide you. We do the tough stuff, the behind the scenes paperwork. We help you understand how to get us what we need to get the care for your loved one. And then finally, veterans benefits. Those of you who may be veterans, or if your child is a dependent of a veteran, that child may qualify for veterans benefits. And you never know until you go through the process. And I've had so many clients who never even thought about that as a possibility. So we do work through the process of determining whether or not your child may qualify for some benefits, some veterans benefits that could further provide care for your child. Our goal is to really try to improve the quality of life for your child and the quality of life for you, because there are so many resources out here, and there is a world of information that I still learn daily that can help improve your quality of life so that you don't suffer what we call the caregiver burnout. And so that even if you do, that we could help provide some relief from that. And then finally.
Thank you, Chastity. Thank you. Your information is spot on. And I know that the two benefits that you talked about, Medicaid and veterans, are very complex. They do require some assistance if you're going to be successful in applying and being awarded Medicaid or veterans benefits. So we really appreciate the fact that you're here with us today. And we're going to welcome our second panelist. And our second panelist's name is Carolyn Fleury, and I've got a chance to get to know Carolyn a little bit in the last several months. Carolyn is a financial advisor with Strategic Financial Partners, where she advises clients on how to protect their assets, grow their assets as well, and plan for tax-efficient retirement. Prior to landing in Nashville 5 years ago, Carolyn worked for JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs in New York City on the investment banking side. Carolyn pivoted her financial knowledge to the personal side, and she saw the need for financial planning and advice. Carolyn and her husband have 5 grown children, all who live on the East Coast, but love to visit the Nashville area. Please welcome Carolyn Fleury.
Thank you so much, Bill, and thank you, Chastity, for the legal side of things. Today, I'm going to talk about financial planning for children with special needs. As we all know, planning for whether it is a child or a grown-up with special needs takes extra money and extra planning as well. Whether it's a physical, mental, or intellectual need, whether it's something that a child was born with or developed over time or from an accident, any situation requires special financial planning because there are extra costs involved with taking care of our loved one with the special needs. And so as a financial advisor, one of the things I sort of pride myself and focus on, like Chastity, it takes a village, but what I focus on is protecting the assets, figuring out how to grow your assets to fund basically pay for the expenses of your special needs child, and then plan for the future, the what ifs, what happens if you're not going to be around, how to make sure we are tax efficient with your money, and most importantly, making sure you're not jeopardizing any of your government subsidies that you might be entitled to. Next slide, please. So what's amazing, 80% of families, believe it or not, with family members, children with special needs do not have a financial plan in place. When I do these, every month I feel like I log on and see if these stats have changed. And unfortunately, it has not changed. And so what does that mean? It's not just the financial side of things, but if you cannot financially give your family members the plan they want, as Chastity touched on, it can take a huge emotional toll on the family members. So what I do is I come in and I try to figure out what your goals are, what your needs are, what your month-to-month costs are, whether it is somebody on a non-medical basis coming in to help giving you a little reprieve as the caregiver. A lot of times if a child has developed a special needs, that parent usually is the one that has to give up their job, whether it's full-time or part-time. And what that happens is, of course, then you have a reduction in the income. And so I come in and I work with families to figure out, okay, what is now the income? Usually it's reduced level coming in, or if both parents are working, it's hiring somebody. That's an additional expense to help take care of that child with special needs. So I work with the families to figure out what their goals are, how to relieve the burden and the stress day to day. The other big thing I work on, and figure out a plan is, bottom line, we're not going to all live forever. So as a caretaker, if you are the parent, the big question I put in place and try to figure out a plan, which is always ever evolving, is what happens if I'm no longer here? What is the plan for my child? If that child is going to need 24/7 supervision, how am I going to fund that? What happens if I, as a parent, also need long-term care and I cannot take care of my child going forward? Chastity mentioned long-term care insurance, and that's one of the things I also go through is making sure, as a parent, if you become disabled yourself and can't take care of yourself or go to work, how do we figure that out? So I work that into my plan and figuring out what to do. Next slide, please. So one of the other things I get a question of is, how to protect your loved ones. I talked about protecting your assets. And the reason why we do that is to make sure that we can grow those assets so your loved ones can live the life they want. I know a lot of special needs is dear to my heart. And I know a lot of special needs children that like, massages, or they like to go to their art class, whatever those, what I call extras are in life. We want to make sure we build that into the financial plan so that you have the financial ability to provide those extras to your child with special needs. And also make sure that when you are gone or you can no longer provide those massages, maybe you're the one that gives your child the massage every day, that we hire somebody and that your intentions are also written down and they are cleared for the future if you cannot provide it or if you're no longer in life. So again, preparing for life's what ifs is a huge part of my job. I know it's not a sexy one. We always don't want to admit the what ifs are going to happen. But as a financial advisor, that is what I do. Whether you physically can't provide the support for your child, or you're physically not even here, or emotionally, all those what ifs play into my financial plan to make sure that the lifestyle that you have provided for your child with special needs continues, not just while you're here, but when you're not here anymore. Along with making sure you're not jeopardizing government benefits. So one of the things, and I won't get into it here, but I do work with a lot of special needs trusts. I get that question a lot in terms of, should I set one up now? How should I fund it? And there are lots of different ways of doing that. And yes, I recommend if you have a child with a special needs to set up a trust, because it is a way to think of it as a separate checking account that money can be put in. You can protect it from jeopardizing some other benefits, and that you can also put in specific controls about what it should be paid for, what money should go out of, without jeopardizing some benefits that you're eligible for. And it's a way of putting things legally in documentation as well. So that's a whole nother conversation, but I do use special needs trusts as well. Next slide, please. So bottom line, as Chastity said, it takes a village, not just a financial advisor, an accountant, a legal advisor. As a financial advisor, I come up with short-term and long-term plans. Life happens, as we all know. So when we put a plan in place, it's not set in stone. It's something we're always adjusting as life things happen. And with children with special needs too, some of their needs may decrease for a couple of months or increase for a couple of months. And that basically relays into the costs associated with those. And I work month to month or week to week. My clients always have my cell phone. So if things changes, you call me up and I move money around or we readjust stuff. So we develop a financial plan, and we also balance what I call the risk tolerance with investments. Every family is different. Every situation is different. It also depends on the age of the parents who are taking care of the child with special needs. How long are the parents going to live for? And that plays into my factor in my plan for financial planning. If you've got a lot of assets, you might be able to be a little more aggressive with your funding in the special needs. If not, we may want to be a little more conservative, especially with the market volatility going on. So that is something I definitely address and work with my clients on. Beneficiary documentation is also critical. That can change time to time because without, as you, the parent, as the caregiver, it's so important to figure out what do you want the future to look like for your children in terms of the directive, not just financial, but emotional, and what does that lifestyle look like? So again, just to reiterate, I work with on the financial side, but I want to make sure that you understand it's important to have a team, and it takes a village, and especially with children with special needs. So thank you so much. And I'm going to pass it back to Bill now.
Thank you, Carolyn. Very informative presentation. I really appreciate it. And it's my great pleasure to introduce my counterpart, who handles pretty much mid-Tennessee and Eastern Tennessee. And more importantly, she's a very good friend. Teresa J. Terry Law, I call her T, is an LPN, born and raised in Middle Tennessee, joined the Vista Points team in 2017, bringing her over 20 years of experience in healthcare. Her experience in the medical field has spanned acute care, long-term care, and non-medical services. In addition to her hands-on nursing approach, she has also helped those dealing with the uncertainty of available services and payer sources. Her public relations and marketing background complements the Vista Points vision to raise awareness, provide education, and promote advocacy with regards to Special Needs Trust. Teresa came to Vista Points looking for the opportunity to work with children and families living with disabilities, while educating our communities on the benefits of Special Needs Trust and to offer resources available to them. As Terry says, I've witnessed firsthand the heartbreaking situations individuals can find themselves in, often not knowing where to turn. I welcome the opportunity to discuss Special Needs Trust and services with them. Teresa has 2 adult children living in Tennessee and Alabama and loves spending time with them and her family. She lives on the family farm and spends her time working with the flowers and watching all the wildlife that call the farm their home. Please welcome my friend, Terry Law.
Thank you, Bill. I'm going to take just a minute, share my screen so that we can get the last presentation up and going for the day today. I appreciate everybody that has been a part of this presentation today. It has been intriguing, and I think you're going to find that I have the best position to be in. It is a pleasure to follow Chastity and Carolyn because they've given you so much information on what you need to begin a Special Needs Trust. I've taken notes, and I hope you have as well. And now I'd like to give you some insight into the services that you're going to need from a trustee. First and foremost, you're going to want to name a trustee that understands the federal laws and guidelines related to Special Needs Trust. As both of these very educated ladies have told you, we want the benefits of a trust, and we don't ever want to lose those because of something we do, not understanding the laws. So we work within those laws. Vista Points has absolutely maintained a high integrity within our business world. We obtain continuing annual education to be sure we stay updated on our rules and regulations so that we know that we're doing the very best for our beneficiaries, and we want to always be able to look out for their benefit. Supporting our beneficiaries, families, and professionals can be multifaceted. We don't ever have 2 days just alike. Our beneficiaries, we often find, don't trust their families. They don't want them involved with their money. They'll call often and ask, is my money still there? Has my family taken my money? What do I need to do to keep them from taking it? And that's okay. We understand those calls and we try to reassure our beneficiaries. Families, our attorneys, in fact, will often call, sometimes crying because their families told them, you're taking my money and you've got to stop and I'm going to sue you or send you to jail. And we understand those. We want to be there to be a support for families, to be sure that they get the services and resources they need. And it may have nothing to do with the Special Needs Trust. We also help the professionals that come into our world, whether they're establishing a trust or looking for those resources. We want to be there to help them with those resources and questions. We will provide backup support to them while the trust is being established, but we also keep our professionals in the loop. We want continuity in the care that is provided to each and every client that we serve. Last but not least to us is advocacy and education. It's a big part of what we believe in. This past year has shown us that we have to look for unconventional opportunities to support those living with special needs and help educate our communities and professionals on the needs of those individuals and the services that will benefit them. We have beneficiaries come to us in many ways. Some call our office just looking for information. They're just starting their research. Others are referred by friends who utilize a Special Needs Trust and think it would be good for them. We also work with professionals that might be attorneys, financial planners, CPAs, and others that refer to us. Attorneys call and tell us they have a client that they would like for VistaPoints to be named as their trustee. Financial planners call us and they're setting up their team of professionals to support their client. And as Carolyn said, it takes a tribe, it takes a team to support each individual to be sure that all aspects are reviewed and that each side of that comes in and weighs into the decisions that are made. CPAs sometimes call in and just are looking for ways to guard financial wealth. So our first step, and what is most important to each and every person, is that you're guided to an attorney that understands Special Needs Trust, and you go and discuss your current situation. Once the attorney has determined that a Special Needs Trust is in your best interest, they start drafting all the documents, the legal hubbub that's needed to be able to have this Special Needs Trust. They talk with you. They'll talk with your financial planner. If you don't have one, they're going to bring one in. The team begins. Once they call VistaPoints and say, we'd like for you to be the trustee, we talk to them. They send us the trust document. We'll review that trust document to be sure everything is in play for us to successfully be your trustee. Then we look at, will the funds be coming into us? Will they stay with an outside financial resource person like Carolyn? And we work with them to establish the accounts that need to be in place for proper handling of your assets. And the best part is we get to send out a welcome packet. It's full of information that you're going to need to understand your Special Needs Trust and to know that things will work out well for you. Our part can be accomplished in as little as 3 working days if all of these documents are in place. Sometimes we find that families are behind a 8 ball and need to get this done. So we can do it in 3 days. It helps to have a few more days so that we know everything is established, funds are properly transferred, and we make that work for you. The biggest question is, now that the trust is established and I have goals, what can I expect? As your professional trustee, we will work to maintain the goals that are established in your trust documents. We monitor changes with federal guidelines or rules, and we will adjust when necessary to protect the benefit of the Special Needs Trust and any other government benefits you may be receiving. Open communication with our beneficiary and our attorneys, in fact, is of utmost importance to us. Our services will always be performed on a timely manner and in a professional way. We want to be a valued extension to your financial family. Our goal is simply to provide you with services that allow you to have peace of mind, knowing your assets that are left for your loved one are protected, they're used appropriately, and help to maintain a quality of life for your loved one. We are always open and welcome to any conversations that you have to be assured that all of your goals and objectives are met. So what do you get from us? You simply get all of the above.
Thank you, Teresa. Again, another wonderful and informative presentation. I want to thank all of our panelists today. Marvelous job, and I'm very proud of the presentation we're making today. Lots of information. Before I turn it back over to Tyler, we're going to check and see if we have some questions from the attendees. I want to do a plug for week number 4. Again, this will be at 10 o'clock next Thursday, the 29th. And we will be presenting and reviewing the opportunities and resources for our special needs families. That will be the subject once again. So Tyler, do we have any questions today for our panelists?
Any questions? Don't hesitate to raise your hand. Let's see. Does any of the panelists have any questions for each other?
Tyler, I'd like to go back to Chastity because I know we're kind of spread out in the state and we always try to contain time, but I would like for her to be able to tell people that she covers a broad area and a lot of times clients think that they need to have their attorney in the same city they're in, and she covers a big area. So I'd like to open that up for her to kind of talk about how she works with clients that may not be in the Memphis area.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Teresa. That's absolutely true. And actually, during the pandemic, we learned that that's even more so true than it had been prior to that. I am, again, licensed in the states of Tennessee and Texas. Which means I can help families across the state, both states. I have, of course, a focus in Tennessee. This is my home. I love Tennessee near and dear. But I work with families all across the state, East Tennessee, West Tennessee. And, you know, the majority of the work that I do does not require that you are in person. I do handle a lot of the estate planning for families as well. And thankfully, right now, we are able to complete estate planning across the state. And we've been doing that, but now we're able to do it a little better since we have some new rules in place temporarily during the pandemic. So I've had clients executing wills that are in Knoxville and Chattanooga, who are miles away from me, but we're able to do that virtually. So thank you so much for bringing that up. That's a very great point.
I know, talking with Chastity in the past, I think, Chastity, you do quite a bit of work in the Nashville area too. You kind of come into the market occasionally and also work remotely on.
I do. Yes, I do. I've worked with families regarding conservatorships, regarding estate planning, some needs, especially with families who may move from Nashville to Memphis or from Memphis to Nashville, or may move out of the city, but still in state, I'm able to continue to work with them.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carolyn, any final thoughts?
So same thing with on the financial side. I work all over the United States, but one question for Chastity that I often get a lot from a legal perspective is, with so many people moving to the Tennessee area, how important is it to update legal documents, trusts, and stuff like that? Do you get a lot of those questions? Because I certainly do.
I do. And I give kind of a generic answer until I'm able to review those documents, which means, it depends. I always recommend, if a client moves out of state or in state and have documents that were executed in a state where they are no longer a resident, to allow me to review those documents, just to ensure a couple of things. One, to ensure that those documents follow the law here. And that there would be a smooth transition should they need to continue to utilize those documents. And then secondly, to make sure that there is language in those documents that are better are recognized here in Tennessee, that sometimes I'll get, for example, a power of attorney that was drafted in California that may not have the language that we prefer that it has, so that it's recognized and it's enforced properly here in Tennessee. So those issues come up, especially when doing like Medicaid planning, that sort of thing. It may not have the language that it needs. So I always recommend that when moving into Tennessee or even out of Tennessee, to have an attorney to review any documents that you've already had executed to make sure that they are still applicable in your state.
Excellent. Well, Vista Points, I know that we can help beneficiaries as long as they reside in the state of Tennessee at this point. So we're kind of the homers. We do a lot of work in Tennessee, and there's a few of us, but we do an excellent job. And it's developing partnerships like the partners that we have on this presentation that really help us do the right job for our beneficiaries and their families. So anyway, I want to thank all of our attendees, again, our panelists, and this will be recorded and rebroadcast this afternoon or this evening at 6 p.m. And we hope to see you again on the 29th at 10 a.m. Thank you very much.